I did.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
I don't know. I haven't looked at, but I tell you what, we'll send you all the white we've got.
Okay. White Viva's 8-aught.
It's interesting thing, what Charles and I found, or we can't find any markings on them. So, I mean, there's all kinds of thread, but we don't know what size it is.
Thread, break strength. I mean,
Yeah.
you guys probably know enough as far as figure out if it's gel spun or, you know, just that tension. I'm pretty sure you'd be able to figure it out.
That's what we'll do. I haven't even opened the boxes yet, so.
Wait a minute.
I'm trying to get back to
dial micrometers that you can measure the diameter.
There you go. Hey, wait, Roger, as long as you're giving me crap, don't you have an app for this?
Oh, but I do have dial micrometers.
I do too. I got micrometers, but are they measured in millimeters or imperial?
Well, they do have an app for conversion, so.
You know, and even at that, you know, I've had threads that measure exactly the same and have got completely different breaking strengths. So.
Well,
yeah, you can measure monofilament to your leader or tip it with a micrometer, but not the thread. It compresses too easily.
Yeah, it compresses real quick. So
I don't know why you guys are giving me a hard time with my white threads. Can you see over to my little? I can't see it on the screen. See my little cubby over here with all my threads in it?
Oh, yeah.
See, I got a few. I have other colors.
I see one.
Just don't use them.
I use them. Okay, there's the bobbin collection.
Oh my God, look. She does have more than white.
I do. And, you know, like when I'm doing my yellow Sallies and some different ones, and I have different colors, but I also have a lot of markers.
I was gonna say, yeah.
You guys can laugh at me all you want. So, well, I guess we didn't pick what our topic was for this week on the Monday night Zoom call. So I neglected to say anything, and I guess we just got so busy on our widgets and gadgets, so it's kind of just an open night, just to see what you guys want to talk about. I hear a couple folks fished over the weekend, so maybe they want to tell us their tall tales, and while we're talking, people can tie and then show your little fun flies after.
well, I'll tell you what I did this past week. I started a new YouTube channel. So if any of you are interested in watching me fish with my Tenkara rods, it's called Tenkara, Nebraska. And the first video that's up there was at, Charles, you'll love this. It's at Benson Lagoon.
Oh, yeah.
And I caught about 6 or 7 crappie in about a half an hour up there, which is interesting because there's never had crappie stocked in that lake. So the second one, which will be out on April 10th, is our trip to Halleck Park this week. So, and Thursday I'm headed up for the Verdigris Creek, and I'll be making my 3rd video there. So
Cool.
it's just kind of a fun thing to do. It combines both hobbies of mine, fishing and photography, into one thing, and it's kind of fun.
So where would we find those again? Those sound pretty interesting.
Just Google Tenkara, Nebraska.
Okay. Check it out.
Jim had Tenkara Bush Wildlife
Yeah.
Sunday.
Well, yeah. So a few of us met out there, Terry and Carl and Mick and another friend of mine. And, you know, we're only out there, I don't know, a couple hours or something like that. We're at Lake 16 out at Bush Wildlife. And it was windy as heck.
Oh, yeah.
And it's still early in the year. The water's cold. The fish are sluggish and stuff like that. But we all caught 4, 5, 6 fish. There was a couple of small bass caught, and but it was mostly bluegill. And Yeah, I fished all day with the 10 cara rod and
Brim.
ball
They're
with it.
called brim, John.
Yeah.
Jim.
Yeah, what tenkara do you use?
What is it called? It's a 12-foot. I think it's by Tenkara USA. I
Okay.
don't remember the name.
Yeah. Yeah, I just bought a new one. It's by Dragon Tail. It's called a Mutant. And it's a zoom rod. I can extend it out to 12 and down into about 10 feet. So I bought it so I can fish different locations. It's a really nice rod. I really like it a lot. I also bought another one by Dragon Tail called the Mizuchi, which is the next smaller size rod. And then I just bought this one. Believe it or not. Can you see that? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's a tenkara rod.
Whoa.
It's 180 centimeters, 6-foot tenkara. And I found a little creek about 10 minutes from here called Mill Creek that's got a lot of history to it and supposed to have some fish in it. So I thought I'd take it up, and I've never seen anybody fish the creek. So I thought I'd take it up one day this week when it stops raining and give it a try.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the label on my rod case, and it's I wanna.
Yeah, that's a good rod.
I love
Everybody I know that fishes it love it.
it. That's great. Yeah, so I mean, at least around here in Missouri, it's right at the beginning of the season when the warm water fishing starts heating up. So
Yeah, here too.
don't hesitate to get out and start throwing some flies around at your local ponds or out at Bush Wildlife or whatever. It's
Yeah,
only going to get better for the next couple of months.
yeah.
What were they biting on? I went out about a week ago or so and fishing for some bluegill, but I was having to use a nymph down about 4 feet or so before I actually was finding anything. They were still way down.
Well,
Yeah,
I
I've
was
been using weighted flies. Utah killer bug is what I've been using. And I've been fishing it slow and on the bottom.
Yeah, I was using captains.
Yeah.
Anybody have any examples of those so that other folks can see what,
Oh yeah.
since we go to the abbreviation so often?
Amy, I
Yes, sir.
have a parachute that, I don't know if you guys can see it.
Oh, we can.
Yep.
I just made it out of peacock and black hackle and put a tail on it. It floats good. I don't know if it catches anything.
Okay. It looks good.
It looks good.
What's your parachute material?
The poly, whatever it's called. Stuff from Feathercraft. I tried to do the calf tails. I got it all done. It fell apart, so I said, screw it.
I was looking for you on the call on Saturday on the marathon. I was looking for you, Walt, and I actually, because I did dreaded materials was kind of the topic, and I was talking about calf tail or kip tail, and I actually made mention of, I said, don't, make sure you say this a few times so that people understand you're not taking the cat.
Yeah.
And don't have people call PETA on you.
Oh, God.
I got a funny story on that.
Can y'all see that?
Can I tell my funny story?
Yes.
Okay, so about the misinterpretation of calf tail and cat tail. So when I was in Alabama, our pastor down there fell in love with healing waters. And he actually made it part of his mission, part of the mission Christmas offering, to start giving to healing waters every year. And so whatever people donate for Christmas, a proceed of that, whatever that amount is part of Healing Waters.
Sure.
So to kind of promote it a little bit, he asked me to do a, in between before church, if I'd get there a half hour, maybe tie a couple flies and then get up during the service. And then we did the national video we posted on there. And then I got up and spoke about Healing Waters. And so anyway, I had a calf tail on the table that I had some flays missed out. And a young lady, probably 7-8 years of age, walks up and she goes, "What's this?" And I just said, "Calf tail." She thought I said cat tail. And she goes, "You mean you kill cats to tie flies with?"
Oh, kill baby cows.
I said calf. And then, so it got worse because I said calf tail and like a cow. And she goes, "You took a cow's tail?" Then it got worse. So.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because so when my daughter was in high school, I started tying, and you have all of the different masks and other things up, and she wouldn't bring her friends down here because she said, "No, I don't want to take you to my mom's serial killer room."
Oh my gosh.
And back then, and before I started putting things more in bins and with a little bit of cedar in them and stuff like that, but it was something where I had full pheasant hanging on the wall. I guess it's kind of what you get used to growing up with, because our carport, when I was a kid growing up, we had deer hanging in the carport. And so I guess it was something where it wasn't unusual to me, but yeah. So the daughter, but now, they'll come in, they'll sit and they'll just watch what I'm doing. But it is funny because it was something for about a year. I'm like, I'm not down there like skinning things. I get them this way, but it was pretty funny.
You just have to
The
explain,
interpretation.
just explain that you go to McDonald's and you get the leftovers. That
Oh, yeah. She
if
probably
you
wouldn't
really
have.
want to complain that it was a calf.
Yeah, so no more Chinese food. So, but yeah, it's interesting, but I made a point of holding to make sure I showed the label when I was talking on Saturday, because I was like, do not misinterpret this. It was pretty funny, but thanks for that laugh, because yeah, it easily, or when you say kip, and then people kind of look at you like, what's a kip? But it is some of our things, and then the amethyst, where it's where it has the head still attached to it, and you get all these amazing feathers to it. But yeah, I actually used to, other than now my pegboard looks different, but it used to be just all of those hanging, and so it did look a little, I guess, creepy.
Jim, what were you going to show us? You had a lure up there.
Oh, yeah. So this is the captain.
Captain.
I hope you can see it. Maybe that's a little better. So it's a simple enough fly, just a couple of some rubber leg tail and black chenille, black hackle, and a bead on a size 10 nymph hook. And I tie them with a orange tail. I tie them with a green tail. And you just cast them out and strip it back in short strips, like 4 or 5 inch strips. And if you don't catch a bluegill on that, you're not going to catch a bluegill. They're just not biting. And another variation that I've been tying even longer, call it the Christmas tree bug, and it's kind of hard to see that, but the body is like cactus chenille or crystal chenille, and a hackle collar, and the tail is just red barbs. And that's another one. I mean, I'm sure I tie at least 100 of these every year, and I've been doing this for 25 years. So, I mean, I don't use them all. I give an awful lot away, but
Yes,
It's-
you do.
yeah, they are great, great bluegill flies, and they're probably about the only two wet flies that I fish for bluegill. And then if they are coming to the surface, which is always a ton of fun, I do a foam beetle. And it's just very, very simple little foam body here. With this background, I feel like you can't see it that well, but there we go. But it's just a piece of foam on the body with some rubber legs. And this one, again, it's a number 10 hook, but it's a dry fly hook. I usually tie on a piece of, well, anything that's bright, just almost like a strike indicator on the back so you can see it better. And I mean, these things fish better than poppers for bluegill. So if they're coming to the surface, that's a great fly. So between those three flies, that's all I need to go bluegill fishing.
Hey, Jimmy, those boxes, those big boxes that you had those in,
Yes.
I've been looking for them. I've got thousands of flies, but they're just everywhere. I want to do that same thing. Where'd you find those boxes?
Oh, I'm sure I ordered them off of Cabela's or something like that. You know, there's a couple of different companies that make them, Plano, and
Okay.
let's see if I got any brand
Terry,
names.
do you want a box to put some flies in? I've got some stuff I don't use.
Well, I don't know if Jimmy will show you a picture of the box that he uses.
Yeah, it's just
There
a
you go.
box like this, and it's by Plano. So they make
Plano.
tackle boxes and stuff like that. So you can get them in all different sizes and different variations of divisions and stuff
But
like that.
But they're shallow, so you could get down into them.
Right. So you can get them shallow, you can get them deep, you can get them any way you want them.
Well, I have a bunch of those, but they're real deep, and you can't get down into them to pick up a fly or something.
There's a place, if you've got them in your area, there's a place called the Container Store that you can go to, and that's where I get them from. I like the ones that have the rounded bottoms. Make getting them out a whole lot easier than those that have the square bottoms in them.
That's a good idea.
Hey, Terry,
Now, are they already gridded, or do you have the
Yeah.
removable grids?
Yeah, you can remove the grids. You can make them any size you want. I don't know if I've got any here or not. I think I've got all mine in the other shop, but yeah. Harbor Freight's got something that's pretty cool too. It's a box that's got separate containers inside of it. And I use that for flies and for also nuts and bolts. So not in the same box, of course.
So
And
are
then
you
I
talking
also-
like,
Yeah, I have a container where,
Yeah.
it fits like 6 of these boxes in there. So all my flies are right there. And so if I go on a trip, all I have to do is grab the container, and I got a world of flies with me.
So there's a Plano, you say?
So the boxes are by Plano. That case is by Flambeau.
How'd you pronounce
Again, they make tackle boxes and stuff like that. It's Flambeau.
it? Oh, Flambeau with an F?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and see, everybody carries this. This is all I carry with me fishing anymore.
Yeah. There
That's
you
it.
go.
There's all I
Yep.
carry.
can
Well,
you-
when I'm bluegill fishing, that's all I carry. But
Yeah.
when I'm trout fishing or bass fishing, nah, I haven't pared it down much yet.
When I'm trout fishing, I carry one like this. It's a little bigger.
Oh,
Nice.
bulletproof?
so Terry, you're talking about these boxes?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So you can find them at anything from Joann's Fabric,
Yep.
Hobby Lobby. They're going to be more expensive there. You can find them at Walmart. They're a lot of different places. and they have the dividers, Harbor Freight.
Yep.
Also, so you can find them because they're typically for holding tools and
Mhm.
different things.
Well,
And
like I
then-
said, I've got those just like that one, but Jim's got the real shallow ones that you can actually get your finger down and pull out a small fly.
Yep, look in the sewing sections then when you're out and about, because
Okay.
these are a little bit more shallow. They're only about a half an inch in height, and they
Okay.
fit great in a vest pocket.
Yeah.
But and I mean, I'll keep an eye out because I'm a thrift shopper, and so I'll keep an eye out for you. You might
All
get
right,
more than
thank
you needed.
Thank
Yeah, I was gonna say, be careful about that because Amy's like me. When I'm shopping with my wife at Hobby Lobby or Joann's or someplace, she goes off and then I go off and I usually wind up with something else and I bring it home and add it to my collection of boxes that I'll never ever use. So I must have, I've got a tote full of boxes like that I don't use. So if anybody needs any boxes, I've got plenty.
Yep. Well, and the other thing is because of how our hooks come, if you buy Dairiki or Firehole or any of the others, so they come in these, and one of the little handy things is they actually snap together. And so in my sling pack, I'll carry two. And that way I have kind of, again, mostly I'm on dries, but it depends on what you want. These are really easy to get in and out of, and they can separate. So if you need to dry one out, but it's really kind of handy. And again, I can't think of anything else to use them for other than flies. So, because I have all the hooks up on the wall, but
Wow.
it is something where, again, you can put them together and then you can kind of size out your stuff, grab the one that you want and go. The other thing is we forget about our dubbing kits.
Yeah.
If you just duct tape over the hole, you've got a whole nother thing to keep. So again, some of the times I've seen a lot of flies in pill bottles, and that makes me a little bit weirded out because when somebody's handing you a pill bottle, it's just not a really good look. But a lot of people use old pill bottles to do that, and the childproof ones are kind of a nightmare. And then
Yeah, and I need to thank Les because he's the one that gave me this idea.
Yep.
I bought a bunch of these, about 10, 12 years ago, and they've been sitting around gathering dust. And Les showed them to us, what was it, 2 weeks ago? Yeah.
Yep.
And you can see what they are. They're called Craft Maker, and they're lockable boxes. And I just put I've got 8 or 10 of them now full of hooks that I'll probably never use. So
that's the same for hooks, kind of having them out where they're available. And the other little trick is having Velcro on the bottom. It doesn't have to be Velcro, but the other thing is I don't want it to slide across. But so just having something that kind of grabs it is kind of handy. But again, it depends on how type A you are in having your sizes out. And if you want them this way, I actually keep all of my hooks in their original containers. And so it is something where, I find that when I empty a container, that's when it goes over to that other pile. The other thing is the dollar store. Don't underestimate the dollar store. Because if you get in there and look, they actually sell these little containers. And so they have a lid on here. They have a magnetic bottom. And what's great is they're magnetic on the bottom. So it really is something that's very handy for, oh, sorry, I'm holding it at the wrong camera. They're like a lid. They come in, you can see what you have, but they're magnetic. They $1 and you get, I don't know, like 2 or 3, but see, they are magnetic because you can see it just picked up my scissors. The only caution, and they stick together, so which is kind of nice. Just as far as making some up and down that you're able to see what you're working with. The one thing is, if you're using a pacemaker, don't put these in your vest, please. Just one of those things.
What store was that, Amy?
The
Dollar
dollar
Tree.
store, Dollar Tree. Dollar Tree.
Oh, Dollar Tree, okay.
Dollar store, yeah. And they have these, and I don't have my other ones out, but they have other ones that are twist off on the top, and they go, it's a whole tube of those. I'm sure somebody else has one. And so you can put hooks, or you can put your beads. You can do dumbbell eyes, and then you can graduate it down. So, you know, when you're twisting off the top, you're taking from the small. Anyway, I'll see if I can.
Now, one thing I've done, it's super simple, but it really is also extremely compact, is I just a simple split ring and punch a hole in the top of the plastic bags, and you can keep all your beads or hooks or whatever in size order and separated, and it takes almost no space at all if you're trying to pack stuff up for a trip or, you know, take some stream side.
Good idea.
The little baggies that things come in, you know, save all those, and then just they're already hole punch, but I actually have a hole punch, and that way it fits up on the pegboard better too. But yeah, all that, there's tons of different, and I told you guys before, save all the little silica gel packets that come in the bottom of when you're doing shopping. If your wife gets a new pair of shoes, if you get a new anything, and you'll find these down at the bottom, and it does have directions not to eat. So don't eat them, but throw those in with your rod case too. If you don't have time right then, other than just a quick wipe off, but throw them in the bottom. I was actually talking to Craig at Hargroves, and we were talking about that, and I have a whole jar in the back, and that's what I do, is I just throw them in there, and it'll help absorb some of that water in either your flies or in your rod case.
You know what? That's a really good idea. Years ago, when I first started fishing, I put my rod away and it was wet, and it sat there for a while. And when I got it out, it was totally covered with mold.
Yep.
And I had to, you know, clean it up and stuff like that. And I mean, since then, when I come back from fishing, I leave the rod tube open for at least a week before I close it up again.
Yep.
But no, that's a great idea, putting those silica packets in there.
Well, and it's something where I learned the hard way, and I've ruined more than one fly box of just letting them sit, and you get home, you get your rest, you hang all that up, and I didn't open up my fly boxes and pulling them out, and the next time you go to use them and they break and it's rusted and everything else. So again, just even throwing them in here. I, again, have a little jar. There's a lot of manufactured stuff, but this is the cheapest, easiest that you can find and use. And it doesn't absorb just humidity. So these will still work without being in a sealed, or you can put a lid on, but I just have a jar of them, and I dump them in, and they don't go bad. They seem to be fine. I don't know that there's any rhyme or reason that you have to replace them or throw them out, but those are, yeah, I learned the hard way too, of pulling out and had an entire rusted box. And that was the last time I did that. But Jim was talking about dry flies. Yay. So here's always for bluegill, and a couple other ones for bluegill too. And yep, I love this time where they're coming up and they're hitting on the top. So you can see kind of my few collections. Of course, the crackleback works any time of year, anywhere you are. You can also give it a little bit of weight and strip it in. But bluegill are getting prime right now, and bass.
Hey, Jimmy, you want to tell her about what Craig said about the glue?
Oh yeah, with the crackleback. Yeah, this was a great idea too. So I do a lot of cracklebacks with just you know, instead of dubbing, I'll do a holograph tinsel.
Yep.
And Carrie was in Hargroves talking to Craig, and he was gave him the idea that what you do is you tie on the hackle, and then you tie on the tinsel, you wrap your tinsel forward, and then you cover the tinsel with UV glue, and then you wrap your hackle forward and tie it off, and then put the UV light on there, and it hardens, and it really makes that fly all but indestructible. I mean, I haven't done it yet, but that sounds like a great idea.
I would bet that would be, and it is something where, trying to figure out which UV, there's so many different options, and you can spend a lot of money trying to figure out which UV you like and you don't like, because I have loon that I don't care for. It hardens up. I have a really good light. I've spent some bucks on that, and I just can't ever get it to get that other. So it is something figuring out the UV portion of it. But you're right. Once your stem goes in, basically, and then you harden it again, that's ingenious.
Well, I don't think you don't harden it until you've already put the hackle on.
That's what I mean, is then once you hit it, and then it like seals it back in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's an ingenious idea. I'm going to try it while we're talking.
Yeah.
5-minute epoxy do the same thing.
What's that?
5-minute epoxy, that's what I've been using. I just get a whole bunch of flies ready, and then I epoxy them, and then finish it off, and then just leave them, put them on a turner and let them turn.
Well, this one, John, it's a St. Louis. Well, it's not obviously only classic to St. Louis, but this one is the problem. Well, and I'm sure you got a solution for it, but so it starts out with, you've got your hackle, you tie that in, and then you're using the holographic. Okay, so you got kind of the tinsel in, and you can use anything from Christmas tinsel. You don't have to buy fancy spool. But I think if I'm understanding the directions correctly, is you tie this in. Oops, missed that. Tie it in. Layer it.
You're not putting a peacock on it?
No. I honestly, you can do a lot. I think it's the most improvised. Well, I'm sure anybody would say that about any flies. Sorry, I didn't put my thread holder on. But I think, if I understand this, and Jim, you can. So tying this in, then hit it with the again.
Now, what I do, Amy, is I stop right there, tie off the thread, and put that fly aside. And I'll tie 10 or 12 of them to that point right there. And then I'll mix my epoxy and continue each fly as I go.
Oh, okay. So I think on this one, and I like the Bondex. Again, there's a couple different head cement is head cement, and I love it for traditional. But I think this is the way I understood it, is now is when your hackle comes in. And this would be kind of on that traditional, the holographic or the Bennett blue.
Sure.
On the crackleback. Come in, tie this in. And I just grabbed hackle. It's actually not horrible. I was cleaning up as we were going here. Come in. You'll notice I keep my hackle attached until I'm done, because you heard me say hackle has a mind of its own.
Yeah,
So sometimes it will jump, and then come in now. Is this what Jim and anchor that in?
What he
That's
said.
what it, yeah, that's what it sounded like.
And so I don't know how that would work, John, with like setting it aside. I mean, I'm sure it would, but I think the idea is to keep that hackle quill so it's hammered down in the epoxy.
Yeah, what I do, Amy, is just prior, what I do is I tie about however many I'm going to tie, half a dozen or so, and I'll tie them and leave the hackle hanging out the back like you did. Tie it off. I'll tie about 6 of them like that. Then I'll start all over again, mix the epoxy, and then put the epoxy on it, wrap the hackle forward, tie it off, and then put it into a turner, like your rod turner when you're drying your rod.
Oh, yeah.
And let it twist and turn like that. And it seems to work really well that way. And it gives me a good solid finish, and fly will last forever that way.
Yeah, because it's just kind of a go-to. What I think is interesting with, it actually took me a few years of fly fishing before I caught a fish on a crackleback. And I know that sounds funny, but I just didn't get the hang of it. I just didn't know, but they do get hit. This one's definitely hard. I mean, as far as I can feel that, especially with the holograph stuff, like that it wants to jump and it wants to come up. And so 2 good teeth in this, and it would probably, the hackles getting destroyed like the peacock. I mean, so anything I think on those parts of it, I think would help. But that's a pretty good idea. I think, yeah, I don't know as far as a dryer. I'd love to have one of those, but yeah, I don't know where that's going for an extra gadget. But that's a great idea. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah. Well, thank Terry. He was the one that told me about it.
Thank Craig.
I've actually,
Go to Hargroves.
whoops.
What you got?
I've tied those to the Bennett Blues. Which
Oh,
is,
that looks
Yeah.
good with that light hackle.
yep,
What do you have for the backing on it?
just the same tinsel
Oh, okay.
and then just hackle, and I've,
Your photo shows up better. Video shows up better than Amy's camera, I think.
trying to put it on the white door, so,
Yeah.
That looks like an Air Force crackleback, blue and white.
Yeah. There you go. We'll call it Air Force Crackleback.
Go high, huh? Fly high.
Well, yeah, and that holograph stuff, I mean, it's really cool to use. There's so many different variations of it. It's a neat thing to use, and it doesn't add any weight at all. And so you know, definitely I like that. As
I wonder
opposed
if
to
I wonder if the glue would help it float and stay dry.
I would
So
think
is
would be
Chris
just the opposite.
I
Yeah,
wouldn't
is Chris-
make it-
What's that?
I would think it's going to add weight and it would not float as well. But, so
Okay.
I noticed Amy hackled hers very full and Mix was very full. I have a tendency to hackle it not as full because I like the ability to, if you hackle it too full, it's basically a dry fly. But if you hackle it more along the lines of like a woolly booger with maybe 5 or 6 wraps around there, if you put a little floating on it, it's a dry fly. If you don't put floating on it and you yank it, it goes under the water and you can fish it right under the surface. So you have, you don't, if you're just kind of trying to figure out what the fish are going after, you can take the same fly and you can fish it dry and you can fish it basically soft hackle or wet fly style.
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
would think though that if you had pheasant, is that what I want to say?
No, peacock.
Peacock, that Peacock would absorb water a lot faster and after a couple of throws and want to sink more than the ribbon with glue on it. I don't know. Any thoughts?
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I wasn't thinking in terms of peacock. You might be right with that. I don't know.
Well,
Sure,
is
sure.
Chris on the call tonight, Mick?
Yeah,
Okay, so Chris had this question a while ago. We were talking about different flies, and he was like, "Well, I wonder if this would work." And I said, "Try it." And so what he did was he tried, I think, some different with the UV, and then also, and I know the dreaded, Sally Hansen's, it to see which one would stay up longer. And so he made a couple different flies and then threw them in water and he let them sit. And then he sent me pictures the next day going, this one's still floating. Believe it or not, the UV versus like Sally Hansen's, unlike not a super glue, but the nail polish stayed up longer on top of the water than a UV finish. And so again, I don't try them. I mean, you guys have seen my pictures of my kitchen sometimes looks like a test experiment because I have all the different vases out and I've got different flies floating in there and seeing how long they'll stay up and different materials. I'm not necessarily partial, but you definitely, I don't think would want to use head cement. And this is where UV would come in. There is it's a little bit less dense than the head cement as far as trying that. So you wouldn't want to cover everything with more of a, we're going to go old school, Rainey's Dave's Flex cement.
Yeah.
It will be heavier in the whole, and trying out different ones too. Flex, it smells. Make sure you put the lid on after you're done using that, otherwise it's a little bit of a contact. But it is something where I think there's a lot of different materials. The sealing the hackle in and then sealing in more on your holographic is kind of the key on that. But there's a lot of different, be curious what you guys come up with too. And mostly again, Sally Hansen's or the quick dry, which is the really fast one. It dries in seconds. Just covers it with a clear coat, but I can tell from just what the one we just did, it's much harder as far as to the touch than Sally Hansen's is it just covers it, kind of absorbs. But be curious, you guys, we'll have to do our little chemistry class and experiment next week.
Hey, you know what? While we're talking about head cement, the other week I was talking about doing the 50-50 mixture of the head cement and the thinner. And now I've only done that one time, and I didn't have any problem with it. But I was talking to Carl yesterday, and he did that, and he started putting the head cement on the flies, and it started turning white. Which I've had that happen before, but it was always because I'm pretty sure it was because I ended up thinning down the head cement too much. So apparently you'll get different mixtures, when you buy your head cement and you buy your thinner. I don't know if it has to do with age or what they make it with or whatever, but he has 2 bottles of head cement that turn white every time he puts it on his head. So,
And somebody,
just be warned, that may not be such a good idea after all.
I like the idea, it just didn't work for me.
You'll find that there's different qualities of lacquer and thinner. It's made up with a variety of different solvents. And one of the problems using lacquer, spraying it and stuff frequently is if it's drying too fast, depending on your spray conditions, it can absorb moisture and get that white look in it. And sometimes you have to add a retarder to make sure it dries slower and gives a chance for any moisture there to kind of get out of it. So yeah, playing with anything that's volatile as the head cement and lacquers, yeah, depends a lot on what you're using. A different thinner could have a total, but I've used just regular clear gloss brush lacquer and thinners and stuff for a head cement substitute, and with good.
I think that's one of the things too. And obviously you see the same similarities with between woodworking and different, even with your epoxies and mixing them correctly. I think one of the things too, and so these are both two different head cements. I won't show which brand yet. One of them is obviously old. And one of the things I look for is, and it's been here for years. I inherited it. I'm keeping it. It's never going anywhere. No, you can't have it. But I know there's absolutely no use in using that because it's already foggy when I pull it up. When you're shopping and when you look, again, this one has a real thin, you can see it moves in there. This one is white. Even if I just put a bodkin in, and again, these are very strong. It's going to come out. The rod builders, yeah, Jim, you can jump in on that. That's what it looks like. It's just not even moving. I don't try to manipulate this. I just say lost. I must have left it open. It's old. I'm going to buy a new bottle of it. I don't trust myself enough to mix or to thin this to make it work for the purpose. But I mean, there's a lot of, again, different options as far as this, but it's good stuff. It's definitely old school. As far as you can do a lot of different dispensers. I tend to just use a bodkin now that I've gunked up with that one. Just go where I need to. Some of you guys probably have the little bottles. I've never quite figured out how to keep my eye on that clean. And then Loon makes another one. So again, it's and this one comes with the brush. Well, there you go. Can't even hardly get it open. Comes with the brush on there. So you can see that could either be a good thing or a disaster. Clear your eye. I actually saw on the marathon over the weekend. I thought this was a really cool trip. If you go over and you covered your eye, just take an old, a shorter, obviously a trash piece of hackle and run it through the eye to kind of clear it after you put the glue on there. And just, again, I wouldn't do it with this full one, but you would just pull it through and that helps clear the eye. Or unlike that one.
Back to the UV glue. I noticed that you put it on the top of the hook, and do you think that I'm curious if you put it either around the whole shank, put it only on the bottom or wholly on the top, how that would make the fly float different? Any thoughts?
I don't think it'd make any
I-
difference.
No,
Okay.
I think it's more related to the hook that you're using, Terry. So
Okay.
if you're trying to tie a dry fly on what would be a wet hook, it's already got more girth to it and it's heavier, and so you're adding even more to it. It's gonna. I don't think that's gonna add. You're talking micro. I don't think so. I think, I've seen some that are saturated, where it's like, whoa, there's almost where it's dripping off. What are the chromoids? I know I'm not saying that.
I've used it a lot, and that's difference in storing it. I had a couple different bottles, and one seemed to stay better a lot longer because I kept it inside the little Ziploc plastic bag that the bottle had come in. It increased, another layer of sealing out air getting to it. I know for paint cans, if it has just a regular lid, sometimes I use that self-sticking saran wrap type stuff, and we'll put that over the head before I screw on the lid, and then trim it off if I know I'm not going to use it for quite a while, because it seals down on the top of the jar, paint can, or whatever, to really keep air from getting in. But have you found any trick or technique that is worth sharing?
Well, the only trick I would say is don't fly with it.
Time or
TSA
fly, don't let it run.
don't fly with it. TSA is obsessed with it. They'll pull it out and they'll open it every single time. Don't fly with it is what I would recommend. But I would say, gosh, where were you? I just painted my whole dining room and living room. But I didn't treat my paint that nice. I thought it was something to, Ziploc the roller that I wanted to use the next day. But I find that, as much as we invest in feathers and bobbins and all of the other stuff, is just break down and at least once or twice a year, just get a new bottle. I think that honestly is a lot of it, that from the frustration of it, or is this good still? Because, you saw that cloudy one, and it'll last you a long time if you do treat it right. I think in a plastic bag is always great, because again, the more you can kind of keep it as tight as possible. You could even do the mason jars, or the kind that lock the canning jars, and keep it where it has less air getting in. I'm sure it would increase the longevity. But I don't know. Again, you guys have seen, I like the Bondec. I can get the little refillable part of it. And then I spent my money on a really good UV light. It's a rechargeable battery. So it doesn't matter. This is actually plumber stuff. So it's something where you can find it at Ace Hardware. You can find it at some of the different hardware stores or on Amazon. But then get yourself a really good UV light, because no matter what, if your UV light isn't charged and doesn't have a really good battery, you will never get that stuff to dry up. The other thing is that once you've put on your UV, let them sit out in the sun. That's going to cure it up as fast as anything. Watch your light and exposure in your own room too with your UV stuff. I've seen people actually turn their light and turn it on an entire jar and move it during a class.
Oof.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, it's something where I figure it's just kind of part of our investment. I don't know that there's any good. We were talking about Sally Hansen's this weekend on the marathon, and some people were having it where it would actually disintegrate on the foam. I've never had that issue. I have never had any issues as far as with using Sally Hansen's or the quick dry and just hitting over the top to kind of tighten in on foam on hoppers or stimulators, so that they didn't absorb as much water, and kind of giving that extra seal versus using UV. So I think it's like all of this, it's so much trial and error.
So
But
I am unfamiliar with Sally Hansen's. What is that?
So Sally Hansen's is a fingernail polish, or it's a top coat or a
Oh.
base coat for fingernails. So you can't tell that I use it because I use it for my fly tying. But then there's also this other one, and it's called, and I'll switch over my camera so you can see it more up. You can find it Walgreens, anywhere. So there's Sally Hansen's that comes like this. It's about $3, I think. And what it is it's almost a hard lacquer that you would put on your fingernails. Helps for strength. They don't break as much, especially for ladies who want to have longer fingernails as well. And then there's another one made by Sally Hansen's, and this is a top coat. So what this does is it goes over the top of fingernail polish and it actually makes it get a little bit harder or creates that shell. I have found that this, and so it's same thing, but here's in the container. It's in the fingernail section. It's just called top coat, and it dries. It smells like it has a little bit more alcohol in that, so it dries quickly and it dries in seconds. So I can take this and literally hit, and I'm not worried about like the durability. I don't need a fly that lasts from here till next year. I need a fly that gets me through as long as I want to fish it, but I don't have to use UV with this. And as it sits, so again, just kind of seconds, and it's already on that tacky side and it's already done. And then I can just put it aside. And I tend to kind of like tie and pitch. And so I put a bunch of things over here and then I separate them out and then they go in the bins and then they do, but it's something where I don't have to worry about 3 flies sticking together, that they're not too tacky. It's not dried enough. But I can just kind of tie, put them over there, come back to them. And again, it's totally dry. So nothing on my finger. I feel like an infomercial.
I got a question.
Sure.
In regards to hooks. This last week, I've had probably a half dozen hooks break off in my vise, just down by the bar. Is just because they're bad hooks? Do I have them too tight?
Are you trying to swing on the thread while you're tying them?
Yes, sir.
What brand hooks are you using?
Mustangs.
Mustangs?
How old are those, Walt?
How old are you?
I'll be 55 in May.
Okay, that's about it.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know. But I mean, I would say the hooks look like there's no rust or deterioration. They were probably, I was talking to Bill Kelly and he said these things were made in the 60s, he thinks.
I think they went through Chernobyl.
So
I'm just saying, this sounds stupid, but if you put it into too tight, what's too tight? When you fling it, it should bounce back or what?
I can't imagine that you could put it in too tight. You know, I tell you, mustache was that was the standard hook for tying flies 20, 30 years ago. But they did have a reputation for being brittle. So, you know, I would suggest that when you put it in the vise, give it a flick and see if it breaks. If it breaks, just throw it away and use the next one. There's probably not anything you're going to be able to do with those hooks that are going to make them, you know, I cannot imagine that you could put a hook in a vise too tightly.
Yeah, they broke when I was doing the whip finish. It just snapped right off.
Yeah. So give it a pull.
You got those knots really tight on the whip finish.
I think it was the quarter stick of dynamite that did it.
All right.
absolutely.
If you feel
So-
ambitious, Walt, going to another hobby of mine, you know, the woodworking, actually making your own cutting blades and some stuff. You could, if they become brittle, sometimes you can soften or make it lose that brittleness. So spread them in a pan or whatever. an hour or so. And when a metal's gotten too hot, sometimes that lower heat for a while will take that tension out of it. It'll still keep its strength, but it won't be as brittle.
Yeah, I do that all the time with spring wire. That's that you use to make springs with. If you heat it up until it's about a light pink and just let it air dry, that takes all the temper out of it. Then if you want to put the temper back in, you heat it up to the same color and dunk it in some oil. So I used to do that when I made knives. You can temper them like that.
Yeah.
What does
Amazing.
annealing mean?
Annealing, that's when you're putting it on that low heat and letting it air dry slowly.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, tempering is when you're making it hard, but it becomes brittle. And like John said, that's usually a little higher temperature and quenched real fast. The annealing's usually a little lower temperature and you cool slowly.
There you go, Walt. So now all you got to do is after you get the tie the fly
Yeah,
tied,
get it. Come on,
Take it
spit
towards-
it out.
take a torch to it, and that'll take care of it.
Yeah.
He will. He will. So you know he will. So here's one of the old school, like in the boxes that they come in. Can you guys see that? So
Yeah.
made in Norway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, no,
And I
that's
mean,
not the old box. The old boxes were orange.
Well, I have those too. I just didn't put it in here. I didn't like orange with my plaid going on here. But now you can find them, and again, in a lot of different varieties on that too. And the only reason why I was saying is how old are the hooks is because sometimes, and especially for Missouri with the humidity, I think that compromises some on, and so obviously, you know, between woodworking, metal, forging, all the different tricks on there. But I would say, yeah, I've had a couple that have broken off. And then I would also question on how much torque you're doing on your hook, like as you're tying on it. You know, as far as, are you really compromising so it feels like it's in tight and you've got it in there, but are you, you know, yanking it around in there? Or is it actually, is it losing on its bend? So I don't know. Lots of little, I guess we'll have to take a look at Walt's fly tying next week.
Well,
See
you
what
can
he's
always
doing.
hold on to the fly a little bit when you're yanking that last,
Yep.
knot or two, so that
Yep.
taking some of the tension off of the breaking point.
Right.
How long were the hooks that were breaking?
I don't know. Hang on.
Are these those marlin hooks?
Yeah. Shit. Here they are. I don't know if you can see them. They're
Well, I
not
can tell that's really stiff.
14s. Okay, that's all I know. Gary, what'd you say?
I don't know. I don't say anything anymore.
Okay, size 14s.
I'm gonna have to go, guys. So
Yep. I'm
see
gonna
you next week.
head up for dinner and
Are we
do we
gonna,
wanna-
what's next week, guys?
I don't know. Do you guys want to pick a topic? This was kind of fun, but you
Did
guys want to
pretty
pick a
good.
topic and
Did pretty good tonight.
How about tie it? Why don't I tie a copper john?
Got my
You had
permission.
Terry,
Yep.
you had Terry clearing his throat on that one. I don't know. All right. Well, let's do Copper John. Anybody else got anything else? Because
I want to hear more about Mick's winery tour.
Yeah. You guys were going fishing, so we hit the wineries, and then all of a sudden we found out you guys were just down the road, so we came to pay you guys a visit.
So it's really windy and I'm the first one there and Mick and Margie show up and I'm trying to tie some tippet, tie a little loop in it, and it's just blowing out of my hand. And they're sitting there watching me and talking to me, and it's blowing out of my hand. I get it tied on there, and I find out that it's not the piece of tippet that I got tied onto my rod. And I bet you it took me 30 minutes to get that fly tied on there. And they're sitting there watching me the whole time. I know that I'm a bad fisherman and a bad fly tyer, but I am not normally that bad.
Were you at the winery?
Yeah, that would have been the best way to do it.
How many glasses of wine did you have before you tried to tie it on?
I should have had something. Well, if I would have been in the winery, I wouldn't have had all that wind on me.
All
Oh,
right,
my.
all. Well, have a great week, and yep, we'll resume next Monday. And I guess right now we're having Walt's tying a Copper John, and then we can just kind of have it a free for all again.
Yeah, somebody was talking about sharing places to fish. So
Oh, yeah.
that's a subject that we could cover many meetings doing that.
Yep,
Absolutely.
I think that's a good idea.
Jimmy,
I'm open to that. Who's got a nice commode?
What?
hey, what?
Nothing,
I
nothing.
don't know.
Where did we get him from?
I don't know.
Hey, so Jimmy, what was Dr. John saying about some of the places besides Lane Springs that he liked? And I was, oh, wait a minute. You walked up Little Piney?
Yeah.
It wasn't a place that you could drive to. Or no?
I think he was probably talking about Lane Springs, but rather than starting at the spring, we probably walk a trail and bushwhack to probably about 3/4 of a mile downstream, and we start fishing there.
No, it was, he said something about some kind of a mill. I thought.
Mill Creek?
No, it was where Lane Springs, and it was further downstream, but I thought the place had a name.
No.
Oh, okay.
Sounds like 2 syllables.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
No, I know we were talking about, like I say, we walk down to what we call the bluff hole.
Yeah.
And then we start fishing there and we cover probably about another mile from there. I mean, round trip from the car, it's usually 3 3/4 miles. So, I divide that by 2. So how far we go downstream.
Right.
And we were talking about the last time we went down there. So we usually stop at a certain point. So like I say, probably about, I don't know, maybe 1.5 miles downstream. But so we're talking about just hightailing it down that far and then starting to fish and explore some more waters even further down.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I thought he had a place that thought it had something to do with a mill, MILL.
Okay. I
Okay.
have no idea what that would have been.
Maybe it was a mill winery.
Hey, Terry, you guys are talking about fishing a Little Piney. What about
Yeah.
the Big Piney down by like Fort Leonard Wood in that area?
Yes.
Could you fish that?
Yeah.
I have not fished it, but it's supposed to be good smallmouth water.
Or the Ruby Doo or something like that?
I've never fished the Rubidoo. That's a trout water.
I fished the Rubidoo years ago, but haven't been there in probably 20 years.
where would you pull in the fish there at? Is there a,
I don't know. I've never fished the Rubens.
I think there's a little park there that you can pull in there. I think that's what we did, but we did catch a lot of smallmouth.
okay. I know Fort Leonard has a spot that they have for the recreation area that you can trout fish in. Never done it.
Well, guys, I got to get going. So we'll see you guys next week.
Sounds
Yeah,
good. Thank
everybody
you.
have a good week.
All right,
Bye.
Yeah. Everybody take care.
all right,
You
good
too.
night.
Mine too.
Thanks, Mick.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Mick. See you
Bye,
next
Mick.
week.
Yep.
Bye now.
You guys are welcome to come out and go fishing here.
Do we need to bring our own dynamite?
I have some.
Okay.
It's a quarry, remember?
Yeah.
Okay.